For several decades, often under the banner of science, progress, or ideology, mankind has sought to alter the very blueprint of human nature.
It's all part of the conspiracy to give them the impression that they were supposed to be the other gender, and they were assigned the wrong gender at birth.
From laboratories to political regimes, from genetic manipulation to psychological conditioning.
Some of the mistakes in DNA cause disease, genetic disease. If we could go in and fix those mistakes, we could save many, many lives and get rid of these diseases.
A quiet yet aggressive ambition has taken root to redefine, redesign, or even replace what God created. Mutilation of the human species. Mutilation is the intentional and severe injury, disfigurement, or removal of body parts from a person, often causing permanent damage.
In Europe, for example, you have a lot of the mutilation of the human species. And many don't understand how this has been happening for years now.
In the Soviet Union under Joseph Stalin, 1920s, 1953, disturbing experiments were carried out. These included non-consensual testing of new drugs, vaccines, and surgical procedures. In the 1920s, biologist Ilya Ivanov, with government backing, attempted to create human-ape hybrids by inseminating chimpanzees with human sperm. Under Adolf Hitler's Nazi regime, there was a relentless pursuit of racial purity and genetic superiority, which led to the forced sterilization of over 400,000 people in Germany between 1933 and 1945. One of the most notorious figures of this era, Josef Mengele, known as the Angel of Death, conducted horrific experiments, particularly on twins. Victims were subjected to blood transfusions between twins, chemical injections, surgical mutilation or organ removal. One twin was killed so the other could be dissected for comparison.
That someone in his right mind, in his sick mind, could conceivably use a human being, a child, and put him on a table and try an exercise so that we can find out what happens. He died, never mind. Where's the next one? Let's try it again in a different part of the body. Maybe the response will be different. This is what we did for Mengele.
I want to remind you, the organizations that supported eugenics and racial hygiene even before Hitler came into office and after Hitler, those organizations have not gone extinct. They are still there. But when it blew open and lots of condemnation of Hitler's act, the other silent perpetrators quickly withdrew and even stopped identifying with the name eugenics and decided to use another one, genetics.
Jennifer Doudna and other scientists discovered a new way to edit DNA. Editing DNA with precision has been a holy grail for scientists for decades. CRISPR is a very fascinating tool. You figure out a part of the DNA sequence that you want to change. Then you take the DNA that's nearby and create a guide in RNA, so that helps you locate the position. And then you link this Cas enzyme, which has the ability to do that cut and edit. And so pulling together this guiding RNA and this Cas enzyme, editing becomes possible.
I study genetics. Okay. Yeah, I'm a biologist. So you don't touch genetic.
Yeah.
Because the genetic, once you change it just a little bit, the error of the replication of your DNA afterwards will create more and more mistake and more error, and we create like so much more disease.
The pattern is clear. When man tries to play God, the result is suffering, distortion, and dehumanization. Hence,
The mutilation of human species. What's going on? Through food and drugs. By contaminating your food and drugs, you have children that are being born, and they're born as girls, but they're going to grow up without breasts. Their breasts will be as flat as the guys. And guys will grow up with breasts looking like they're girls.
chronic consumption of meat containing hormone residues, such as estradiol, zeranol, progesterone, and testosterone, commonly used to promote animal growth, has been associated with the development of breast tissue in boys, gynecomastia.
Zeranol. It is the most powerful synthetic estrogen in human food. It's this pellet of estrogen concentrate that gets shoved behind cows' ears as soon as they're born to make them grow fat fast, because we literally are on a timetable, people. Between that day and 1,700 pound slaughter day, we have 18 months. So mother's milk is not good enough for that. So we use Zeranol. Why does this matter? Well, let's go way back to the late 1970s. All of a sudden in Milan, Italy, these little boys and girls who were 3 to 10 years old started sprouting breasts. So they tracked it back to the Zeranol used in meat. But the US, nearly 40 years later, still uses it. The EU has banned the importation of all beef raised with Zeranol from the US and Canada. And to this day, that ban exists. Turns out if you take a petri dish and you put benign breast cells in it and drip a little Zeranol on top, it only takes 21 days for that to turn into cancer. New Jersey, they just did a study a few years back looking at the urine of girls who are 9 and 10 years old. Zeranol is in their urine. So then they did a food analysis, and every single time there's Zeranol, red meat or popcorn was consumed the night before. No Zeranol, no red meat, no popcorn, because the Zeranol gets into your cornfields too.
Estradiol is the primary female sex hormone, and if we have too much of it in our bodies, it can lead to reproductive issues and cancers of the breast and ovaries in women, while in men, it can lead to gynecomastia, erectile dysfunction, and infertility.
So what they did is have young men ages 19 through 21 and children ages 7 through 9 try to chug a quart of cow's milk in under 10 minutes. This is what happened to the men. The levels of the pregnancy estrogen, estrone, started to shoot up 60% within an hour of drinking the milk, and their testosterone levels significantly dropped. What about the children? Same thing, but even more dramatic, because they start out with such low levels. Within 1 hour of drinking cow milk, the level of sex steroid hormones in their little bodies more than triples.
Multiple studies, including the U.S. National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey, and findings published in Environmental Health Perspectives, have shown that elevated blood lead levels in girls are linked to suppressed breast development and delayed onset of puberty.
Experts found metals in many popular fruit juice brands, but the fact is that metals like arsenic, lead, mercury, and cadmium are all around us, but high levels of exposure can be toxic.
Exposure to toxic metals such as lead, cadmium, and mercury, commonly found in contaminated soil, spices, canned foods, rice, leafy vegetables, shellfish, organ meats, and seafood, can disrupt the hypothalamic pituitary axis, a key regulator of puberty.
For some unknown reason, my pituitary gland is not producing the LH and the FH hormones. I did not mature like my peers. One thing about having it is having what is called a micropenis, a penis that just doesn't grow at all. It's just like a baby's size of a baby's. It's barely there. It's just bare. There's no pubic hair. There's no hair on it. There's no signs of puberty.
This interference can lead to hormonal imbalances in girls and feminizing effects in boys.
Conversation around the feminization of men today. The way that we're eating, is making us very unmanly. All these things turn into fake estrogen in the body. And what that does is now you got a man who has this estrogen dominating in the body. And when that happens is you start to see the effects of it, because most people don't understand. Hormones tell us what, not only our bodies what to do, but they can tell it what to look like, feel like. So ultimately, when you see a man who has issues with low testosterone, right? You're gonna start to see balding, erectile dysfunction. You're gonna start to see him lose muscle mass. So inability to build muscle too.
Certain drugs have been associated with abnormal sexual development in both males and females.
So this study was done by the University of Milan, the urological department, and this is a 2021 study. Now this is a meta-analysis of 32 different studies that were collected. And it talks about the pharmacological or drug-induced gynecomastia. And I think a lot of people would find it interesting that spironolactone or aldactone, which is a frequently prescribed diuretic, and we know we use it in females with PCOS, specifically to block the androgen receptor activity. It is known to be an anti-androgen, and in fact, it increases the prevalence of gynecomastia in men. The other one is finasteride, which a lot of guys are obviously familiar with as well. It is a DHT blocker or a 5-alpha reductase inhibitor.
It's all part of the conspiracy to give them the impression that they were supposed to be the other gender, and they were assigned the wrong gender at birth.
In recent times, puberty blockers have become the latest tool used in human mutilation.
Puberty blockers are drugs that they administer to young people to stop them from having the puberty development. So they are restricted, and they cannot be, if you were a guy, you couldn't now grow up as a boy because of those drugs. To limit your development in your age of puberty.
The term puberty blocking or puberty blockers really shouldn't be used. It's not accurate. There's no way to block puberty with medications or with anything. We've been told by various organizations, including prominent medical groups, that you can pause puberty, giving the child time to think about what gender they want to be, that they're reversible and they're harmless. It's just not true. The brain does not grow as one unit. There are certain sections that do not complete maturation until even into young adulthood, mid-20s. We do know that some of the last areas to mature are the frontal cortex, involved in executive function, making decisions. There are things that need to happen in sequence, hormones that have to be introduced that help with brain development, bone development, muscle development, coordination. If we stop those, we don't know what that does.
Shockingly, children's hospitals are big players in this game.
The American Medical Association, the American Academy of Pediatrics, the American Endocrine Society, or whatever the exact name of that is, all of the major medical associations have signed off on this, Joe. They've signed off on it. And I have never seen those organizations sign off on anything with less information as to whether or not it does long-term harm of anything in my life. And when I ask about that, when I bring that up, then they immediately label you as transphobic.
Depriving children of puberty. Children should be allowed to grow up and mature into intact, sexually functioning adults, and preventing them from doing so is one of the most shocking human rights abuses I have ever heard of.
A teenager who says puberty blockers were sold to her as a miracle cure has revealed they actually did nothing to solve her problems. Speaking to The Times, the anonymous child explained how she began taking the blockers aged 12 because she was unhappy as a girl. 4 years on, she says taking the drugs was the worst decision she ever made. The teen chose to speak out in order to help others, saying, "I was sold a miracle cure. They promised happiness with little evidence behind it." She has now stopped taking the blockers and will wait until she's 18 before deciding on a future course of action.
At 16, Kira was desperate to be a boy. She was given drugs to delay puberty, then male hormones. Clinicians say for some children this is the right move, but Kira believes it was a mistake for her.
The discussions were very brief and there was no real investigation into why I had gender dysphoric feelings and how I got to that stage. I spoke briefly of depression and anxiety, but again it was kind of assumed by everyone that transitioning would alleviate that.
And then it's followed with the silicone racket, where with the silicone they try to give artificial breast expansion.
Hence the mutilation of human species.
It's all a racket.
Silicone plays a central role in the modern cosmetic industry, which generates billions in revenue.
The global market is expected to reach a huge USD $14.62 billion in 2025.
Wow, that's a big number.
Yeah, and it doesn't stop there. By 2033, it's projected to almost double to hit USD $29.56 billion. That's a compound annual growth rate of 9.20%.
From breast augmentation to facial sculpting, from hips and buttocks to even calves and genitalia. Breast implants remain the most common use. Silicone gel, polydimethylsiloxane PDMS, which is the main material in silicone, moves if it leaks into body tissues.
What other things could be in these implants? Well, it turns out the implants are made with several layers, so each layer is composed of different materials. And this is an example of a safety data sheet of just one of the implants that are all required to do. And look at the list of the heavy metals on here. And so there's a huge list of them. There's even chemicals that are used that are listed as volatiles to cure and to make the implants. So you can imagine a whole host of potential issues that could be a problem.
I woke up one day with extreme joint and muscle pain.
Lyra Marshall says she wishes she learned more about all the risks before her own implant surgery in 2002.
I remember saying, just fill them up and get rid of the stretch marks.
Marshall wanted to improve her self-esteem, but wound up with a number of unexplained symptoms.
Headaches, migraines, all the time.
Continuing for 17 years.
My body was inflamed, puffiness, heart palpitations.
Then she found thousands of women on social media reporting similar symptoms.
Breast implant illness is real.
But it's a disease not recognized by the FDA or many doctors.
It's very difficult going to your physicians because we are so ill and they have no idea what breast implant illness is.
Patients showing up at this FDA hearing in March pleading for federal help.
My doctors told me that nothing could be found to explain my health problems.
Representatives from all 4 American breast implant manufacturers were there: Allergan, Mentor, Ideal, and Sientra. But the companies argued against their own customers, saying the illness doesn't exist.
In this short period of time, we've fortunately not seen any cases we're aware of with ALCL or even breast implant illness.
And the FDA agrees, saying there's no scientific evidence supporting breast implant illness. But a growing number are coming forward, blaming implants for chronic fatigue, fevers, brain fog, and joint pain.
How many of you were very tired?
So I thought I'd go through multiple surgeries with these risks and side effects just to have the aesthetic look of breasts. So that's when it hit me. Do I have to have breasts? The general surgeon removed my breast tissue. The plastic surgeon dissected through my muscle to retrieve the implant and capsule. It was then that they discovered that my muscle had been torn. See, the weight of the breast implant that I had carried around for 8 long years caused my muscle to tear. That was what was causing my intense pain. Immediately after surgery, I felt better. I could literally breathe.
So they create a problem and give you a fake solution that will result in cancer.
When implanted, these foreign objects can trigger persistent inflammation and immune responses. Prolonged inflammation and immune activation may contribute to cancer development. A study in JAMA Oncology linked silicone implants with a rare type of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
TIA-ALCL typically has 2 main symptoms: fluid accumulating around the implant, which makes one breast larger than the other, and the scar tissue around the implant hardens and thickens.
This breast over here looked fine in the mirror, and this one
was higher up and bigger.
On the recommendation of the surgeon, you went to see a fifth doctor.
Yes. He said, I'm going to take care of you. We're going to remove the whole thing. You don't need either radiation or chemotherapy, and you're going to be fine.
A surgery that involves removing the implant and all the surrounding scar tissue, known as the capsule.
In most cases, curative.
So if caught early enough, if you take out the scar tissue, the cancer is in that scar tissue.
Correct.
What happens if the cancer is not caught early enough?
There is potential for disease to spread.
We are now seeing a sudden increase in the number of cases of BIALCL reported worldwide.
So later on, the silicone breast solution will result in cancer. They know it, but they don't give you the true information because many times the medical doctors and beauticians know nothing. They just read whatever has been sent to them by the pharmaceutical industry that's behind these nefarious activities. And most don't know what's going on.
The idea that teenagers, let alone little children, are capable of making such life-altering decisions is not only brand new, it's absurd. What does exist is chemical castration, sterilization, and surgical mutilation.
It's Satan's plan to run the nations at this time, but that's not going to happen because we are in charge and continue to pray. We must not relent.